Hello and welcome to the Wedding Guide podcast. I'm your host, Pete the Celebrant, and we are proudly sponsored by Easy Weddings. Easy Weddings helps thousands of couples nail their big day every year. With their award-winning directory and mobile apps, you can find and book top-rated wedding suppliers, stay on track with their planning tools, or for a more hands-off approach, you can work with a wedding planner to save you time and money. And the best thing, it's free. So jump on to easyweddings.com.au to start your stress-free journey up the aisle today. And joining us for the episode is Alex Cork from Easy Weddings. Alex was married in May 2021 and he had a 4-day wedding with his beautiful bride. He shares with us all the lessons that he learned from this huge planning accomplishment. Allow me to introduce you to the very brave Alex Cork. Well, thank you so much for joining us, everyone, and a massive hello and welcome to Alex Cork from Easy Weddings. Alex, how are you doing?
Peter, I'm pretty well, mate. Thank you so much for hosting the show. I am still in lockdown, as is everybody else, kind of getting through it. This snap lockdown is definitely not a snap. It's the longest snap I've ever been a part of. Trying to still stay in the swing of working from home, getting that motivation to log in and check your emails and all the rest of it. Enjoying that the weather is coming around a little bit as well. I don't know, people might be listening on a day when the weather is terrible. We are recording on a day when the weather is beautiful.
Gorgeous day.
So yeah, it is. Yeah, it's a lovely day. I'm sure we'll go for a bit of a walk afterwards, but doing okay. Doing okay, mate.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, it is a gorgeous day. It's Thursday, everyone. So Thursday, the 2nd September. Tomorrow's my birthday, just for everyone to know if you want to send presents, but no pressure with that.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. I do hear tomorrow's weather is absolutely rubbish, which is perfect timing for them to open up parks for children. But regardless, today is a cracker of a day. Look at that sun.
Yes.
So Alex, tell us about yourself. So you're working at Easy Weddings. Run us through what you do there, where you've worked before.
Yeah, sure, mate. Yeah, well, at the moment, I'm at Easy Weddings as the head of client experience. So my main role is to, I see myself as working for the suppliers who are on the website. So the people who advertise with Easy Weddings, my job is to make sure that they're having a good time on the site as much as possible. And I'm providing value outside of inquiries is the main two things. So trying to educate business owners who are advertising with Easy Weddings about how they can improve their business in many different ways, shapes, or forms. And I think one of my challenges at the moment is really getting my head around the wedding industry, having not been in that previously. I've come from education. So I worked in an education company, have been podcasting for the education company, and still do, actually. If that's something, I'm not going to give that a plug at the moment, here to talk about weddings. So I came mainly for the education side where I was running, webinars and this kind of thing. And now I'm doing the same kind of thing for Easy Weddings, for the Easy Weddings clientele. And, in terms of the wedding side of things, it was really interesting how I came to join. I've only been here for just over a month, I guess. I was looking for, different opportunities after I got married, which I got married in May. And we're going to cover a bit of this because it was like a crash course in weddings, that's for sure. I feel a bit guilty about having like a big wedding this year, but because of all the COVID stuff and how many people have not been able to do that, but we dodged the COVID bullet very, very luckily. But in any case, I was looking at different jobs. I was applying mainly for different universities and different kind of, top schools around there doing their marketing, etc. And then I came across this job with Easy Weddings. And I was like, that could be a bit of an interesting, take on things. Like I really enjoyed the wedding planning experience and getting involved in that. My wife is a wedding dance choreographer. She's done a lot of that before as well. And I thought, may as well give it a shot. And I put my application in at 10 p.m. And by 3 p.m. the next day, I had a job offer. It's the quickest turnaround I've ever been awesome. A part of, which was great. So they must have liked me in the interview, which was nice to know. Since then I've just kind of been finding my feet, trying to work out like what is it that wedding suppliers really need at the moment, and what can we do from educating a couple's side of things as well. Like what ideally would suppliers want couples to know about getting married in 2022? And I think that goes around like Saturdays are often not going to be available, like be open to weekday weddings, or things like, COVID policies are likely to change, and be open to not having your wedding rescheduled or not being able to reschedule your wedding due to COVID in 2022, because some venues are just not going to allow that anymore. So it's all those little bits and pieces that I'm getting my head around, the wedding industry in general. But it's been a really great change so far. Really enjoying it.
Cool. Well, I'm really curious about your wedding, and mainly because of its length and the planning behind that. So tell us about your wedding. Tell us, it was early this year in May. What's your wife's name?
So my wife's name is Usha. So she's Indian background, so North Indian. And yeah, like when I popped the question to her in another mini COVID break, which was, I think, July, she knows this date. I don't all the time, but I think it was July kind of 2020. I kind of knew roughly what I was getting myself in for. I knew that it's, like a multiple day wedding, and I knew that, there was going to have to be significant expenditure at some point in time.
Yep.
Like, you need to shell out a little bit and whatnot. But I think the amount of planning and the wedding that came together, and at the end of it, was probably more than I expected. Like, it was the planning itself. Planning a Friday, Saturday. So it was one event on Friday, which is called the Sangeet, which basically is like a song and dance. Essentially, like, you just get together. But we had to plan a dance for that. My wife planned a surprise dance for me. I planned a surprise dance for her. We had heaps of people. We kind of tried to keep it fairly casual in terms of the clothing and whatnot. And then the Saturday, we combined two events because we wanted to avoid having an event on Mother's Day. So we had two events on the Saturday, which was both home-based events. They're traditionally home-based events. One was the Haldi, which is like a purification ceremony involving turmeric, where I get like turmeric, kind of like caked into my face and my ears and everything else. Like, after a while, it started burning a little bit, which isn't great. But other than that, it was like a super fun ceremony. And then the girls get their henna done. And when the girls were getting their henna done, I took the boys to go for a hit of golf, which was nice. And then on the Monday, we had two ceremonies. We had an Indian ceremony in the morning. We had a Western ceremony in the afternoon/evening. We had them at two different locations, buses in between, different guests. It was hectic. I don't recommend it to anybody to do what we did, but, and we planned this all ourselves. We didn't have a wedding planner or anything. We did this all DIY. But there was definitely some lessons learned from that whole experience that I've been sharing with couples and who have been asking, not just Indian couples, but anyone, about planning a wedding. Because I think we learned a lot from that experience.
Well, why don't you tell us what are some of those lessons? What did you learn? Because that's a huge planning, like just learning curve.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. This is a good, okay. I'll give you a couple of things that I learned. Number one is, it was an interesting thing around budgeting, because I didn't really know what to expect from the budget. I mean, you can look at different people's, like estimates and averages and whatnot. But when you're planning a 4-day wedding, all those numbers kind of go out the window. So I said to my wife, and we kind of said, hey, look, let's get some quotes and then we'll put our budget together, because we're not quite sure what the cost will end up being. Like, if someone said, what budget do you want for your wedding? I'd say, I don't really know, because I don't have any quotes yet. When I start getting quotes from venues and different suppliers and this kind of stuff, then I'll have a rough idea of what my budget should be. So we tried to do it that way, which kind of made sense initially. But as time went on, what I realized is that there is a lot of hidden costs with weddings. Like, I came from, planning events in my education company that I was working for. And I realized that, I thought that venues was going to be the primary cost, because that's what it was when you're running seminars. But with weddings, like, that's just one part of it. It's like half, but then you've also got, your food and beverage, your floristry, you've got your entertainment, you've got your transport, you've got all these other things, your bridal outfits, your groomsmen suits, you've got the hair and makeup. Oh my God, I hated paying for everyone's hair and makeup. I was like, surely they could do this themselves, surely. And my wife was like, no, we need to organize this. It's like, oh my God. So all of those hidden expenses. So lesson for the couples there, don't necessarily think about, like, when you're planning your wedding budget, take into account all of the other things that might come into it, and be generous, like, budget more than what you think they might cost.
Sure.
And then hopefully you can undercut it. The second thing I learned was when to stop being a wedding planner and when to start being a bride and groom. Because right up until the last day, on the Sunday, I had to drive out to Tullamarine to pick up my Indian wedding outfit because it got delayed like 3 times. I ordered it from Etsy from someone who's got a shop on Etsy and whatnot. She made these lovely things and whatnot, and she delivered it to Melbourne like express post. On Friday night when we were doing our first event, they said, you're not going to get it until Monday. And I said, well, Monday's no use to us. Like, I'm going to be married at that point. Like, I need it earlier than that. And so we actually my wife got on the phone. She's very good at this kind of stuff. And she was like, let me speak to your manager, please. So that's as we were on our way to our event on Friday. So anyway, we've got a message on Sunday to pick it up and everything. But the lesson learned there was, like, at some point, and this is the conversation that I had with my wife, I'm like, we need to stop being the wedding planner and start being a bride and groom. So, that's being present on the day. And everyone tells you to be present on the day. And I think if anyone was kind of thinking, should I get a wedding planner or should I not? I would say that having a wedding planner would probably have allowed us to be more present on the day. Yeah. Because we were still, the best part, I'll give you a quick little story. One of the best parts of the wedding for me, in terms of like letting go of the planning aspect, wasn't until the very final, like we'd done the ceremony, we'd done the sparkler exit, we'd done all that, Yeah. And the buses were there ready to take people back. And we had 2 buses organized, one to go back to Melbourne and one to go to various places in the Yarra Valley to drop people off.
Sure.
And the bus driver said to me, I said, oh, sorry, mate. Like, I don't know, who's going where. I'm not quite sure. There's some details that still need to be sorted out. And this guy said, mate, don't worry. We'll round them up. And I was like, oh, thank you, God. Like, this guy basically said, stop being a wedding planner. You're married now. Go enjoy your night type of thing. Yeah. And for me, that was I finally was able to let go. And I think if there was a wedding planner there from the get-go, it would have been a lot less stressful, obviously. Well, that's the idea, I guess. So yeah, just knowing if you are DIYing it, the planning aspect, knowing when to kind of get back into that groom bride mindset, and getting out of the planning one was an interesting lesson.
I think it's a really important one. There's obviously benefits to planning your own wedding, and a lot of couples do that, even if they're going to other venues that will have the wedding planner there to help plan their aspects inside of the wedding from a venue side. It's really important to be able to trust your suppliers, and it's important to be able to just take a step back and just take in the day, because you've literally spent so much money to make sure everyone can have an incredible time and have this great experience as you celebrate your relationship. And the last thing you want to do is be stuck worrying about all the little logistics. And that's not an easy thing to do. And it will be different for each couple, depend on personality type, will depend on the vendors. And that's why when I recommend people finding suppliers, we'll find someone that you gel with, find someone who you're on that same sort of vibe with, and you're like, yeah, they'll really contribute well to our day. Because if you can just trust them, they will help you navigate all the little bits and pieces on the day, like the bus driver, just taking that weight off your shoulders. You presented a problem to him, and he wasn't sort of like, all right, will you go fix it? He was like, yeah, no worries, I've got your back. Yeah. And for you, that just was like, oh, that's exactly, I needed someone else to clean this up for me. Thank you very much.
Yeah, exactly. There was definitely some aspects where we saw the other side of that, though, where suppliers perhaps were not as good at solving problems as you would hope they would be.
Sure.
We were dealing with one of the venue managers, and I was there. My wife wasn't. So this is on the Sunday as well. We're in the Yarra Valley, and she was like, "Oh, we need the final seating plan." And seating plans are stressful as is. Like, they are the worst part of my wife mainly did ours, and I do not envy her at all for it. It's like the worst part of planning a wedding, I think, is that damn seating plan. Anyway, we went to the venue manager, and she was like, "Oh, we need the final one, the final one," because we made like one tiny change. And the venue manager started like saying, "Can we get that final thing?" And my wife was on the phone. I spoke to her, and she's like, "Why is this so difficult? Make one change. That's all we've asked for." And it was a legal thing for the venue to say, "No, we need the final seating plan for legal reasons," because they've been sued in the past for a seating plan that didn't quite go according to what the bride and groom thought. Anyway, my wife was like pretty annoyed that we had to do this. And the venue manager literally started hyperventilating. Like, she was like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I'm really sorry." And I'm like, whoa. Like, this is solvable. Like, you chill out. I've already got one stressed woman in my life, which is my wife. I've got another one, which is my mum, who is also very stressed out. I really don't need you to stress out right now. And she said, "You probably don't need me to stress out right now." I'm like, "I definitely do not need you to stress out right now." So it was definitely like, there's some suppliers, I think it's knowing, if it is that pressure situation, how they're going to handle it. But majority are ready and waiting to handle that pressure and have done it many times before. So it's not too much of an issue. But yeah, there's definitely some times where I was like, "Really? Like, you're a wedding planner or like a wedding venue manager?" I was like, "That's interesting."
Yeah. You definitely want people there with you on the day that aren't going to stress you out, and who
Exactly
can just, even if someone's just putting on that face, if there's a problem, it's like, "No worries, we got this." Even if at the time you don't know the solution, go figure it out. But the couple don't need to know that the issue doesn't currently have a solution, because you're going to solve it for them.
Yep.
And you talk to every vendor, and they'll always tell you that stuff goes wrong on your wedding day. It's inevitable. It might be the small things, like a little bit of timing here and there, or, for the family shot, the Uncle Barry's just gone walkabout. Like, he's gone to grab a beer at the other side of the venue, and he's not coming back. He's having a great old chat with someone else. And it's just like, you're going to have to sometimes just let things go. And then there are things like, well, we have to come back to this at another point, or it's like, we need to solve this now. And part of why, when people ask me about being their MC, part of why I tell them I think it's a benefit is, one, it allows everyone to just chill out and have fun. But sometimes you just need something done on your wedding day and you're not sure who to ask. And it's like, that can be me. I'll be there. If something needs to be taken to a car or dropped off or picked up, or just a message needs to be relayed to someone, it's like, you've got me there. You've got someone just, there to help.
I can can I just give a quick example on that as well? I chatted to my best man, because I slept in the same room as my best man the night before the wedding. We shared this like lovely house in the Yarra Valley. There's like 12 of us there, and we're on one side, groomsmen on one side and bridesmaids on the other.
Yeah.
And I said to my groomsman, I said, "Mate, there's going to be problems tomorrow. 100%. There's going to be two kinds of problems. There's going to be major problems and minor problems. Major problems derail the wedding. We're talking like emergencies, calling the ambulance, this kind of thing. That's the problems I want to know about. The second one, minor problems, it's, things are a little late, things, food isn't quite right, these kinds of things, I don't want to know about them. I don't really care." I just said, like, unless it is threatening to derail the entire wedding, I really don't care. It is not worth solving on the day. And he was like to be fair, he did a fantastic job. As a best man, he really stepped up. My other groomsmen, bless, they kind of like, they loved the day, which is awesome. But like, when I needed someone to help out, I was like, I just went to my best man because he was onto it, and he was like, "I'm here to make sure you have a great day." My other groomsmen, my brother being one, he was, wandering off and having fun, and I'm like, "Bro, I need your help with this. Like, where are you going right now?" So anyway, yeah, but definitely there's two types of problems, and I think that second one, the minor ones, are not worth your time.
We're just going to quickly pause this podcast because someone's come to deliver something and they really need me. So,
no, yeah, you do it,
pause
man.
That thought.
It's all good.
Sorry about that.
That's right, man.
New trampoline. So
sweet.
I wondered. I was like, man, don't delivery people just drop it at the door? But probably not for a huge thing.
Well, speaking of which, I'm getting a delivery of a fireplace soon. So
come on.
Yeah. I mean, like, it's a little bit late. We would have loved a little bit earlier, but better late than never, I guess.
Yeah. Cool.
So we just talked about like the major and minor problems, and then like, when it comes to a wedding, don't worry about the minor problems, which I think is definitely good advice for couples.
So some of the big lessons you learned were when it came to, I guess I'm curious to find out with budgeting, because you did start getting different quotes and all that.
Mm-hmm.
You said you found that it was the hidden costs that you found more than you expected. Can you talk to because other couples will be finding that same experience. Like, what did you do about that?
I think mainly we were looking at cutting costs in some areas that, like, it was just a matter of, do we really need some of these things? Like when it comes to entertainment or photography. Oh yeah. So one of the major costs of videography and photography. And that's something that, like, it's one of those things that everyone says after their wedding that they wish they had spent more on. But when you're doing 4 days or 3 days, like, you can't have a professional videographer or photographer there every day, because that will be like $30,000 or something like that. It'd be crazy.
Yeah.
So we got like a pretty amateurish guy for the Friday, which was fine. Like, we got some pics and whatnot. Were they great? Meh, not so good, but like, it was at least something. And we ended up having a bit of a deal with the videographer on the Monday, and he was really great. He was like, "Hey, I'll charge you for 8 hours, because I'll do 4 hours at the first ceremony, 4 hours at the second, but I won't charge you for that time in between." So he was really sweet about that, and that ended up saving us like two grand just by doing that kind of thing. But yeah, some of the other ways we saved some money was through some floristry and just bargaining with some people and being like, "Hey, what else can you do?" Like, there's the quote, and then there's the follow-up quote type of thing. Being like, okay, that's, $3,000 on flowers. Like, can you get that down to 2.5? Or, for the groomsmen suits, for instance, I was originally going to buy them all suits, like just at MJ Bale or something. And then after a bit, I was like, oh, that's not going to work at all. So I ended up hiring suits, which was cheaper. So it ended up working out okay. But from a budgeting perspective, it was really just kind of shaving a little bit off as many different people as we could, as many different suppliers as we could. We didn't want to like cut videography or photography. We just wanted to shave a little bit off here and there in a couple of different places. Did we go over budget in the end? Yes, we did. Is that kind of like a given almost for weddings? Probably.
Probably.
Like, that's just particularly when you're doing 4 days. Like, one of the things that I really didn't want to do is have to pay for alcohol for 2 different events. The Friday night for 100 plus people, and the Monday night for 120 people. Like, that's an absolute killer, paying for alcohol. And my wife was like, "No, we need to. That's like the thing." I'm like, "Nah, I'm not doing it." So we'll do 1 drink on arrival for the Friday, and after that, people can DIY. And people didn't mind at all. People didn't really care. People understood. They were like, "Yeah, you're doing a 4-day wedding. Like, chill. You don't need to like do everything for us," type of thing. So, I think some of the shaving a little bit off here and there was probably the way that we approached budgeting, and ended up working not too bad.
Yeah. And I think you've got to make adjustments. Like, one, For a 4-day wedding. Oh my gosh. But for any wedding, you've got to make adjustments and you've got to choose what is important to you and what do you really want to put your money into, and what are you happy to go, this isn't crucial for us. And it's like, even some choices like, is it going to make everyone happy? Well, regardless, there are going to be choices that, like, it's your wedding and they're not the ones paying for it. You've got to make choices that fit within your budget, your lifestyle. I think that's important. That's a really tough one that people have to navigate. And it's just going to change couple to couple. But for a 4-day wedding, like, I don't know, I feel like you would take out a home loan just to pay for that, but probably not. I don't know.
Look, I have to admit, my mum helped us, quite a lot actually with the Monday reception, and to be fair, like, that kind of gave her allowance to invite quite a few of her mates as well. She was like, I want this person here and this person here. I'm like, I don't know those people. And she's like, well, you're going to, because, like, I'm helping you pay for this damn thing. So yeah, they're coming. All right. And I was like, okay, sure. So there was that kind of flexibility, and we're really grateful that mum was able to help in that way. But yeah, it certainly, budget wise, I was like, I've been saying to people that Indian weddings are so big because they don't want you to get married twice. They want you to kind of like getting divorced and getting another Indian wedding. It'll ruin you financially. So you just get married once and you're done.
Do it once, make it huge, and you'll be satisfied.
That's it.
Yeah, cool. Is there any other lessons, anything else that you want to share with couples that will help them plan their own wedding?
I would say, in terms of working with suppliers, get on the phone. I just thought so much was lost over email, and so much time was wasted over email. I think, I was the type of person that, when you're planning a big wedding, I didn't have time to kind of like wait for email replies and then, follow up. Where was that email? Where did we leave it? Type of thing. I'd just be like, hey, are you free or available on this day? Is this something that you do? Like, we'd check their Instagram, we'd check, their EW storefront, these kinds of things, see the photos, images, videos that we liked. And if they were available, we'd say, great, send us a quick quote, and then we'll get on the phone and we'll plan the rest. So I didn't like stuffing around on emails too much. I just think it wasted a lot of time. And I think the other thing is just being consistent with your planning, one thing that I found hilarious that I'll just throw at you as well, which is great, is when you are planning a wedding, you will very quickly know which of your guests have been married before and which of your guests are not married, judging simply by the questions that you get from them. So we got some questions, bless, from our non-married guests around like, is this footwear for my boyfriend okay to wear on the Friday night? Because we were like, Indian wedding, so people were a little bit unsure about how Indian they should be or not be, right?
Sure.
And this was like literally on the Thursday before the Friday, and we at that point could not have cared less as to what footwear people were going to wear. And it was amazing, that kind of question. So if you are attending a wedding, and particularly for a close friend, the kind of emails or messages that we were getting from married friends was like, hey man, let me know if we can help in any way or shape or form. Like, just anything we can do to help, let us know. All the best for the wedding. And then like your non-married friends are asking this trivial kind of stuff around, your shoes and whatnot. So, oh my gosh, that was so frustrating. But yeah, so one of the things we tried to do, like one other quick tip for couples is when we put together a wedding website.
Yep.
And we used actually, we used like an online wedding website type of thing. And we made it really comprehensive. And we had FAQs in there. We had as much detail as we could. We had information about all the days. We sent individual online invites for every event to every couple, all the rest of it. And that was, I think, a bit of a lifesaver for us, because we were just like, just go to the website, go to the website. So I think that ended up saving us a lot of work down the line, because people could refer to the information. But of course, we still got the question about random footwear. If that person is listening right now, I still love you very much. But yeah, don't ask those kind of questions in future. Like I just don't care. I don't need to know.
Yeah. Cool. I think that's you've definitely put a new spotlight on weddings for me. I didn't actually consider how crucial it could be with, I guess, those trivial questions, or just questions in general. And I've seen them more as like someone's like, oh, that's a really nice website. It's like all information, but it's so much easier to say, hey, just go check this page out, or just shoot them the link over a text message that has all the information. You've already done the effort, rather than having the same conversation 100 times. Just send them the link. I think that is brilliant.
Yeah.
And you totally sold me on wedding websites.
The FAQ page on a wedding website is, like probably the place that we sent people the most, particularly around dress code. And, I think a lot of guests get quite concerned about dress code, particularly for a multicultural wedding, not really knowing, they don't want to be the odd one out in like Indian garb when no one else is, type of thing. But yeah, we just said, hey, look, it's all on there. And we tried to stress that this is, look nice, but don't be worried too much. If you're like at our ceremony, for instance, or at our second ceremony, we had people in tuxes, not tuxes, but suits, and people in like kurtas, like Indian menswear or saris and this kind of stuff. And it was great. It was colorful. It was fun. Like, it was fine. And I think some guests get too hung up on the dress code side of things. So if you can just make it clear in your invites and in your wedding website, if you're doing it, then that can help a lot.
Cool. Well done. 4-day wedding. That's huge. And you've done it. Like it's a life experience, bucket list, ticked off. Well done.
100%. Thank you.
Now, there's another thing we want to talk about in this podcast, and that was the Easy Weddings survey. Why don't you run us through what the survey is about and why people should get on it?
Yeah, sure. So I've put the survey together for this year for the both the B2C or business to couples, as we might call them in this instance. So basically like the opportunity for couples to tell us about their wedding experiences, as well as the business to business one. So the wedding industry survey. So we've been doing this survey for the last, I think it's like 6 or 7 years that Easy Weddings has been doing this, maybe even longer. And essentially, it's the largest survey of recently engaged and married couples, recently married and engaged couples, as well as wedding industry businesses. And we aim to have around like 4,500 to 5,000 couples filling this survey out. And what it's aiming to give is a really comprehensive picture of, firstly, given the last 12, 18 months, what effects has COVID had on weddings Australia-wide? And that could be like on a state-by-state basis, so we can break the data down that way, like what's the wedding look like in Victoria versus New South Wales, etc. How the wedding industry might look in the next 12 months as well. What are people thinking will be the future of weddings? Are they thinking that there's going to be more Zoom weddings or more outdoor weddings or bigger weddings or smaller weddings? Like we've got a question like that in there. And then also like, what do people value? What are people looking for when they're choosing suppliers? Are they looking for suppliers who have photos and images that really suit what they're looking for? Or do they want, suppliers with really good reviews? Or do they want word of mouth recommendations? So everyone's got a bit of something different. At the moment, we've got about 1,500 responses, which is great. And, the more information we get from couples, either, as I said, like, recently married or engaged, will really help, thousands of wedding businesses know a little bit more about how to market their services to couples. But it will really kind of help the industry in general, which is like a huge industry when you think about it, to kind of, work out what is some of the averages and what are some of the trends we're seeing more broadly. Because otherwise it's just like instinct and gut feel as to like, I think there's going to be more small weddings. But at the moment, like there's a lot of people that are saying that 2022 will be bigger weddings, because they're like, people who wanted to get out and live, right? They're kind of sick of the small weddings potentially. So there's been quite a few people saying bigger weddings are going to be a feature of 2022. which might fly in the face of what some people think is going to be the case. So the more responses we get on these kinds of questions, the more we can kind of get a sense of what the wedding industry is likely to be over the next 12 months.
Yeah. Cool. So this gives an opportunity for couples to get on to this survey and for businesses to come to the survey, correct?
Yeah. So there's two different surveys. So there is a couples one, and if the couples are seeing the business link, you probably shouldn't be, but essentially like you should be looking for the Australian wedding survey for couples, and then the Australian business, the wedding business survey, wedding industry survey for wedding businesses. So yeah, and like we're certainly giving couples a chance to vent their frustrations about planning a wedding in the last 12 months, like how many times they've been postponed and what kind of other comments they have around COVID, what have been like, they said that so far 70% of couples have said that COVID uncertainty or delays has been the biggest, most stressful factor about planning a wedding, even bigger than guest lists or budgeting or in-laws or anything else. And then some couples have said, like how they would have more confidence about a wedding in 2022, like what would need to happen. And it's like, I think a lot of couples are saying at the moment that government policy around snap lockdowns need to change, and or vaccination rates need to increase, these kinds of things. So, because that's like the main factor here in Australia that we're seeing is different to the US and particularly the UK. Like the UK, for context, on the day that they announced when their Freedom Day would be, so they announced in February that they were going to have a Freedom Day in like mid-June. On that day that they announced when that Freedom Day would be, wedding websites crashed because there was that many people being like, now I need to book my wedding ASAP. But here in Australia, we haven't had that like definitive date as to when lockdown policy would change. And so couples are just still feeling this kind of like uncertainty, which is just weighing on them so much. And suppliers as well, who are obviously got the headache of rescheduling 1,000 different weddings type of thing. So yeah, it's been really challenging for Australian couples in particular, not because we've had like the highest COVID numbers in the world, but because we've had probably the most uncertainty around what governments are likely to do in response to any kind of numbers, like, 10 cases, snap lockdown. There was couples recently who I've heard about who were about to get married on the day that the regional lockdown went in place at 1 p.m. And there was couples like getting ready for an afternoon wedding. Crazy. Who then had to cancel. Which is absolutely crazy.
Yeah. It's, I think couples and vendors alike are just finding it exhausting trying to, there's just the uncertainty, having no idea, like planning for your wedding and literally in the middle of getting hair and makeup. And it's like, oh, just found out we can't have our wedding. Like it's not a normal way to live. And it feels like it's become the norm, but that doesn't make it any easier. In fact, I think it's we're making it harder. And I spoke to a couple this morning. It's their 6th time they've attempted to plan their wedding. And it's just like, man,
oh my God.
I'm like, you guys deserve a trophy or something, because that's just crazy.
One thing we're looking at in the survey as well is, what are people's plans if their wedding has been that impacted by COVID as well? Are they looking to still hold that one big day event that they originally thought that they were going to be able to do? Or are they moving towards kind of a smaller ceremony, 5 people, whatever it might be, and then holding a 1-year anniversary reception, which is what's quite common in the US at the moment. But it's like the terminology of anniversary reception is virtually unknown here in Australia, but in the US, it's quite the dumb thing. So a lot of couples who got married in lockdown with, 5-10 people in the US are doing a bigger celebration for their 1-year anniversary. And I know that Australian couples are doing it, like they're having a party, but they might not necessarily call it an anniversary reception. They're just like, let's get together and finally celebrate with all our friends and family. So it's interesting to see some of those responses come through on the survey as well, as to like, if COVID has delayed your wedding heaps of times, what impact is that having on your wedding? Are you spending more or spending less? Are you, how many guests did you ideally want, and how many guests did you end up inviting? These kinds of things that we're processing.
Cool. Well, look, I personally know the Easy Wedding surveys, they're informative, they're interesting, and they do really help particularly help businesses know how to just tell other couples, how they can help them, and just offering great insights. So, if you're a couple there and you're waiting to get married, or you've just been married, or you're looking forward to getting married and getting things ready, jump on to that survey. Where can they find that, Alex? Where's like the link?
Well, I mean, we could probably put the link in the show notes. If that's
We can
okay.
do that. We can put the link in
yeah.
the show notes. We're going to do it, everyone.
That's it. Yeah. Sweet. Yeah. We can put the industry link and also, of course, the couple link in the show notes, which would be helpful. And then if they want to send any, if they can share that link with any other couples that are getting, who are engaged or recently married, that would be great. And of course, like the link for the couples survey is also as a pop-up on our website. It's coming up there fairly regularly. And of course, they can check out the Easy Weddings Instagram, and they're on there talking about, the surveys in many different ways. We're actually doing like all these different polls on the Instagram at the same time, like kind of more fun ones, less kind of like wedding intense, more like did you wear heels or flats type of thing. But definitely it's worth checking out the Easy Weddings Instagram, because there's some of the more formal survey stuff and the more fun survey stuff too.
Awesome. Fantastic. Hey, just before we go, is there anything else that you wanted to share with the couples? Any one best advice, last thing you'd like to say?
Good question. I would say you should probably end up doing the wedding that you originally dreamed of, because that, at the end of the day, there's been a lot of, people who are romanticizing the intimate home-based weddings, and there's certainly nothing wrong with that, particularly if that's the way you saw yourself getting married originally. But if that isn't the way you saw yourself getting married, I wouldn't necessarily settle for that and then say, okay, well, that's it, we're done now. Look at having that party later on in the year. Look at, if it means delaying your wedding again, type of thing. Like maybe, if that means that you're closer to having that wedding that you dreamed of, like it's worth it. As I said, we were so lucky to have dodged the COVID bullet. I mean, we still had sacrifices. My brother lives in New York and he couldn't attend. We had him doing an online reading at the chapel service. Like we ended up, It wasn't like a religious ceremony, but he did a quick reading that I liked him to do. But essentially we were able to hold our wedding the way we mostly wanted it to be. And we really hope couples are able to do that as well. And it's just a patience thing at the moment, patience, frustration, dealing with all of that. It's so difficult. And my last tip for couples is, if you're looking at rescheduling or postponing, don't cancel. Just reschedule or postpone. Work with your suppliers. I know there's a lot of suppliers who are really struggling, and like it's hard because these couples are like, I've had to reschedule 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 times, but then you've got suppliers who are dealing with 6 or 7 reschedules every single week or every single day even. And so like, as much as I find one of the challenges for suppliers in particular is that they're having to put on a happy face and an accommodating face for couples, because it's, so many suppliers want to give people their dream day. But in the current, it is so hard for suppliers to keep on smiling through this, through like a backlog of emails of distressed couples saying, hey, we need to reschedule. And it's so hard. So my last tip is, be super kind to your suppliers. Be super loving. Be super understanding that whatever you're going through and the stresses you're going through, they are feeling it just as much as you are, and have been feeling it for months as well. So, like you're all in the same boat, type of thing. So, just understanding that I think is really crucial.
Too true. And I think on behalf of all wedding suppliers, thank you for sharing that, because it's hard. You don't want to be telling couples what's going on in your world, because you do want to put on that smile and you do want to make sure that they're having the best experience, even if it is to reschedule. And I'll be honest, I think pretty much all of my couples who have come back have pretty much said, hey, this must be a really tough time for you. We are going to have to reschedule. So there is I feel like there's a lot of almost camaraderie in this, having to go through just the shittiness of rescheduling and reorganizing it again and again. But I know a lot of suppliers will appreciate you sharing that on their behalf. Well, everyone, we are going to make sure you can get access to that Easy Weddings survey. It will be in the show notes. We're going to get some great pictures of Alex and his wife and their wedding. I'm hoping you've got one of when you're just covered in turmeric, because that would be quite funny to see. And oh, fantastic. And everyone, thank you for listening. Hey, have a great day, and thank you for listening. Bye.
And we're good, and we're out.
Cause